He said, now it's February 4th. Because the glacier's not only flowing down, the glacier is reducing in height. So they can now see.
The other thing, though, is I think people's feelings are mixed, because they're beginning to dream that they might actually grow some crops, raise some sheep, and have more tourism. But clearly, a whole way of life is threatened.
We also saw huge helicopters that were taking oil exploration teams out into the north Atlantic.
Yes.
Straits of Baffin Straits,
After the bridge.
about 25 miles out, there's several oil rigs now. So
But that may
hopefully they're
be
safe.
how they keep their sanity, too.
Yeah.
If they're dreaming a little bit about it.
Right, it is, I'm
I
sure.
mean, they have to go somewhere.
Yeah, you're right.
There is a high level of suicide rate in Greenland, across Greenland. There's a lot of alcoholism, and but there's also a lot of people that are working on new things and new ideas and trying to bring tourists back to some of these places. It's really, in my opinion, it's kind of like the Danish Alaska. You see a lot of Danes there on vacation.
Yes.
They need to bring more people from the rest of the world as well, because it's so beautiful. They end up in Ilulissat because of that great hotel. Hotel Arctic is like a 4-star hotel. It's quite
Yeah.
amazing, really.
Yeah.
It's very expensive too, but if they went one more step to Uminok, or even further north to Qaanaaq, where the people still hunt, you could see how things are changing there. But the further north you go, the more dramatic the change. The hunters in Qaanaaq can't hunt as much as they used to because there's heavy snow instead of hard packed snow. And the ice breaks up earlier. You know, like I said before, 5 weeks or 6 weeks of ice here in Uminok, usually 4 months. You know, it freezes at the end of December, it melts in June. Now it's barely freezes in February or even in March, and then it melts in April. Pretty different this year. Yeah.
You don't see how much the government of Denmark subsidizes the Greenland economy?
Yeah, a lot. 25 million, something like that. A lot.
What percentage of, what's the economy of Greenland, I mean, on a percentage? You know?
Well, I mean, the only export is fish,
Right.
and then tourism is their only other source of income, really, other than minerals and now oil. So actually, there was a mine just outside of Uminok, a very interesting place. I've never been there, called Marmalik, which is about 1,000 feet up on a cliff. You see a streak of dark in the cliff, and it's lead, iron, and nickel. And they had mined it years ago by running a cable car up from the ocean level all the way up to this top of this, to this really just a sedimentary layer almost in the rock. Closed down because the price of minerals were low. It's reopening now. Marmalik is going to be active again. Just a hole in the rock, and it's a mine inside this huge cliff, and once it's gone, of course, it's gone. But there's mineral potential all across Greenland, and there is mineral exploration. A lot of those people are happy to see the ice melt, so they can get at the minerals. And a lot of people, of course, are looking offshore to oil reserves. And in an Arctic environment, you know, a spill like we had in the Gulf would just be horrible. It wouldn't evaporate like it does in hot water. It would be there forever, like it was in Alaska. Yes. Yeah.
Do the indigenous people own any of the businesses, the hotels, anything, or is it all?
Well, it seemed to me that the owners of the hotels often were Danish. So I think the higher end businesses reflect the colonial experience of Greenland. The shops and grocery stores seem to me often to be owned more locally. So it's a bit of a mix, but you can see the consequence of colonialism, that where there's a lot of money, very often the owners are.
I think all the locals have dog teams, and they fish in the winter on the ice. That's their favorite time of the year, those 3 months where they can get out on the ice and fish through the ice. They catch a Greenlandic shark and halibut and cod. And in the summertime, they all have very small boats, like 14-foot fiberglass boats with 40-horse motors. And they zip around near Uminok and fish. There are quotas now for how much time they can each can fish. which I think is why our fisherman was working day and night, 24 hours a day, because he only had 48 hours to fish that summer, and he caught a lot of fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't wear life jackets. The water's so cold, they're gonna die anyway, so we might as well get it over with.
Hard to roll a 14-foot fiberglass boat, too. Any other questions?
Can you get a sense for how many people emigrate out of Greenland, how many native Greenlanders go out, and also how many people move to Greenland?
No, but I think there's a lot of movement back and forth between Denmark and Greenland. Greenlanders tend to spend part of their lives in Copenhagen or in Denmark, and they are educated there. There's no high school in Uminok. They go to Nuuk, and then if they want to go to college, they go to Copenhagen. And I think that a lot of them go back and forth a lot, but I don't know the numbers, no. I think the population of Greenland is fairly stable at about 30,000, and there seems to be some new blood, some people moving away, but I don't know what the numbers are.
I also had the impression that there's a fair amount of migration from these tiny villages into Nuuk, which is their capital city. Because a number of the people that Mary Shedd had known when she lived there 30 years ago, the children had gone to Nuuk. So there's this internal migration, just like most places in the world, where people are heading for cities, hoping that there's more jobs there.
And Uminok is considered a town, and around Uminok there are 5 villages, which is like a couple hundred people. Uminok has 1,500 people, and the villages only have a couple hundred people. We didn't visit any villages on this trip, but they're much smaller, and those village people are not finding a way to make a living, so they're either moving to Uminok or moving to Nuuk or back to Europe.
And Ilulissat was the 3rd largest city in the country. It's 5,000 people, $5,000.
It's a heck of a grocery store.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you coming.
Thank you.